She chased a thief through the market with nothing but a shoe and fury, screaming threats that made sailors blush. The hooded stranger watching from the shadows laughed for the first time in 30 years. What the struggling single mother didn't know, the man now following her home was the vampire king himself, and her courage had just awakened something dangerous in him. What would you do if a stranger followed you home? Drop your answer below. The market smelled of rain and rotting fish. Aldrich pulled his hood lower, watching the night crowd shuffle between stalls lit by flickering oil lamps. 30 years. 30 years since he'd felt anything beyond the cold weight of his crown. 30 years since betrayal had hollowed him out, leaving nothing but duty and an endless, gnawing emptiness. He came to these markets because his advisors couldn't. They saw numbers, tax revenues, crime statistics, population counts. Aldrich needed to see faces, needed to remember why he still bothered ruling at all. Tonight, he was just another shadow in a worn cloak. "Please," a woman's voice cut through the market noise. "I need the fever medicine, my son." Aldrich's eyes shifted to a stall where a thin woman with wild, tangled hair was digging through a threadbare pouch. Her fingers trembled as she counted copper coins onto the merchant's table. "Not enough," the merchant grunted, sweeping the coins back toward her. "Prices went up. Shortages." The woman, Mira, he heard someone call her, looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dark circles hung beneath her eyes, and her dress was patched in at least 4 places, but her jaw was set with stubborn determination. "I'll bring the rest tomorrow," she said firmly. "My boy needs this tonight." "No credit." "He's dying." "Then maybe you should have saved better." The merchant turned away. Aldrich felt nothing. He'd seen this scene play out 1,000 times. Poverty, desperation, the small cruelties that kept the world spinning. He should move on. There were other districts to observe, A hand shot out, fast, too fast for a normal human. A figure in dark clothes snatched Mira's pouch from the table and bolted into the crowd. For a moment, everyone froze. The merchant swore, someone gasped. Mira stood there, staring at her empty hands, at the scattered copper coins rolling across the mud. Then her face changed, not into despair, into pure, incandescent rage. "You absolute bastard!" she screamed, and took off running. Her shoe came off in the mud. She didn't stop. She bent down, grabbed it, and kept sprinting, now wielding the worn leather shoe like a weapon. "I will skin you alive! I will feed you to rats! Get back here!" The thief vaulted over a barrel. Mira went through it, scattering fish everywhere, still screaming threats that would make a sailor blush. And Aldrich laughed. The sound shocked him. It burst from his chest like something breaking free, raw and unexpected. His hand flew to his mouth, but it was too late. The laugh had already escaped, echoing in his own ears like a stranger's voice. When was the last time? When had he last? No, he couldn't remember. Couldn't remember what joy felt like until this ridiculous woman with one shoe chased a thief through a fish market, screaming promises of creative violence. The thief was fast, enhanced, definitely, vampire-touched, even if just barely. But Mira was furious, and fury gave her a wild, chaotic momentum that was somehow working. "Your mother would be ashamed. Your ancestors are crying. Give me back my money, you walking disaster." She swung the shoe, actually connected. The thief stumbled. Aldrich moved without thinking. He was faster than both of them, faster than almost anything that walked the earth. In 3 seconds, he'd crossed the market, intercepted the thief in a dark alley, and slammed him against the wall with enough force to crack stone. "The pouch," Aldrich said quietly. The thief's eyes went wide. Even through the hood, he could sense it, the power, the age, the absolute authority that radiated from Aldrich like cold moonlight. "My lord, I didn't know." "The pouch." Shaking hands offered it up. Aldrich took it, then glanced at the thief's neck. Vampire-touched, as he'd suspected, low-level corruption, the kind that made humans stronger, faster, and stupider. Who turned you? I don't. Aldrich's hand moved to the thief's throat, not squeezing, just resting there, a reminder. Vaughn's people, the thief gasped. They're offering blood deals in the lower districts, strength for loyalty. That's all I know, I swear. Vaughn, of course. Aldrich released him. Run. If I see you again, you won't get a second chance. The thief vanished into the shadows. Aldrich turned to find Mira standing at the alley entrance, breathing hard, still holding her shoe like a club. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. I had him, she said. You had a shoe. It was working. Despite himself, Aldrich's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Almost. He held out the pouch. Mira snatched it, checked the contents, then looked up at him with suspicious eyes. Who are you? Someone who dislikes thieves. You moved like... She stopped, studied him. You're not human. Smart, observant, and apparently not scared, which is either very brave or very foolish. Does it matter? Aldrich asked. Depends. Are you going to eat me? I just saved your money. That's not an answer. He found himself almost smiling again, twice in one night, unprecedented. Buy your medicine, he said, turning to leave. Wait, her voice stopped him. When he glanced back, her expression had softened, just slightly. Thank you. My son, he really does need it. Something in her voice made Aldrich pause. The love, the desperation, the absolute certainty that she would burn the world down for her child. He knew that feeling, had felt it once, before everything shattered. Your son is lucky, he said quietly, to have someone who fights so fiercely for him. Then he disappeared into the crowd before she could respond. Have you ever fought for someone you love like this? Tell us your story. But he didn't go far. Curiosity, that dangerous, long-dead thing, had stirred to life. He followed her from the shadows, watching as she bought the medicine, as she hurried through dark streets to a cramped house in the worker district. Through the window, he saw her kneel beside a small bed where a boy lay feverish and pale, saw her smooth his hair back with gentle hands, the same hands that had wielded a shoe like a weapon minutes ago. Aldrich moved closer, silent as death. Then he felt it. The energy, the blood. His breath stopped. It couldn't be. That bloodline was extinct, destroyed in the purges, lost to... But there it was, dormant, hidden beneath layers of human heritage, but unmistakable. Cleansing blood, the cure to vampire corruption, the power that could restore or destroy everything Aldrich had built. In the body of a sick child. Aldrich turned. Mira stood in the doorway, holding a cast-iron pan like a sword. Stop lurking outside my house or I'll introduce you to my second favorite shoe.
Even facing down a vampire king, even exhausted and terrified, she was threatening him with footwear. Aldrich stepped back, hands raised. I meant no harm. Then why are you here? Because your son might be the most important person in the kingdom, because everything just changed, because I felt something tonight that I thought was dead forever. Curiosity, he said instead. Well, be curious somewhere else. But as Aldrich melted back into the shadows, he saw movement across the street. Another figure, another watcher. Someone else knew about the boy. And suddenly, the night felt much more dangerous. Dawn crept through the narrow streets like a reluctant visitor. Aldrich hadn't left. He'd perched on a rooftop across from Mira's house, motionless as a statue, watching, waiting. The other presence he'd sensed had vanished an hour ago, but the threat lingered in the air like smoke. Inside, through the thin walls, he could hear everything. Mira's exhausted humming, the creak of floorboards, the soft, labored breathing of the sick child. Come on, Rowan, the medicine will work. You just need to rest. Rowan. The boy's name was Rowan. Aldrich closed his eyes, extending his senses. The cleansing blood pulsed faintly in the child's veins, a rhythm that called to something ancient in Aldrich's own corrupted bloodline. It was like standing near a flame after decades in the cold. Painful, necessary, terrifying. If Vaughn's rogues discovered this boy existed, they'd kill him within hours. The cleansing blood could purify vampire corruption, restore the old order, strip away the dark enhancements that kept vampires like Vaughn powerful and unaccountable. They had built empires on corruption. A cure would destroy everything they'd gained. Aldrich had to protect the child. But how? Without revealing who he was, without terrifying Mira, without... The front door banged open. Mira emerged, wrapped in a shawl, carrying an empty bucket toward the communal well. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but alert, scanning the street with the weariness of someone who'd learned not to trust peaceful mornings. Aldrich dropped from the roof, landing silently in the alley beside her house. He needed to examine the boy more closely, needed to confirm what he'd sensed. Just a moment while she was gone. "Are you following me?" Aldrich spun. Mira stood 3 feet away, bucket raised like a weapon. How had she... "I doubled back," she said flatly. "Old trick. Works on creeps every time. I'm not... You saved my money last night. That bought you exactly 1 pass. This," she gestured at him lurking near her door, "this is creep behavior." Aldrich straightened, keeping his hands visible. In 300 years, he'd negotiated with warlords, ancient vampires, and eldritch horrors. None had been as intimidating as this exhausted mother with a bucket. "Your son," he said carefully. "He's not just sick, is he?" Her entire body went rigid. "What did you say?" "I can sense things. His energy is unusual. Get away from my house. Listen to me." "No," she stepped forward, bucket still raised. "I don't know what you are or what you want, but my boy is sick, that's all. Just fever. Just leave us alone." But Aldrich had seen the flash of fear in her eyes, the recognition. She knew. Maybe not the details, but she knew Rowan was different. "There are others," Aldrich said quietly. "Others who will come looking, who will sense what I sense. Then I'll hit them with bigger buckets. This isn't a joke. Do I look like I'm laughing?" Mira's knuckles were white around the bucket handle. "Every day someone new tries to tell me my son is cursed, or blessed, or special. You know what I tell them? I tell them he's mine. That's all that matters." A window shutter opened above them. "Mama?" A weak, small voice. "Rowan." The boy was awake. Mira's fierce expression crumbled into immediate concern. "I'm here, baby, just talking to a very persistent beggar who's about to leave. He smells wrong, like old starlight, like the night sky before storms." Aldrich's breath caught. The boy could sense his true nature, his age, his power. Mira's face went pale. She looked at Aldrich with new understanding and new terror. "Inside, now, before the neighbors see." She grabbed his cloak and yanked him through her doorway with surprising strength, slamming the door behind them. The house was tiny, 1 room, barely furnished. Rowan lay on a narrow bed in the corner, his small face flushed with fever, but his eyes were bright and far too knowing for a child. "You're old," Rowan said, staring at Aldrich. "Older than the city walls, older than..." He coughed. Mira rushed to his side. "Don't talk, sweetheart. Save your strength." But Rowan kept staring at Aldrich. "Are you here to take me away, like the man said you would?" Everything stopped. "What man?" Aldrich asked, his voice deadly soft. Mira's hand tightened on Rowan's. 3 nights ago, someone came to the door asking about Rowan, asking if he'd shown any unusual talents. Her eyes met Aldrich's. "I said no. I lied. Then I bolted every door and haven't slept since." Vaughn's scouts. They were already searching. "You need to leave this house. Tonight, maybe sooner. I can't just... We have nowhere to go." Then you'll die here, both of you." Mira flinched, but her jaw set with that familiar, stubborn defiance. "Who are you, really?" Aldrich looked at the boy, at the mother, at this tiny house that somehow held the kingdom's future in its walls. "Someone who's forgotten how to protect anything," he said quietly. "But I'm going to remember, starting now." Outside, a shadow moved past the window. Aldrich's hand went to the concealed blade at his hip. "Get away from the door," he whispered. Mira pulled Rowan close, fear finally breaking through her brave mask. The shadow paused, listening. Then it moved on, but Aldrich knew they were already out of time. The abandoned barracks smelled like blood and old ambition. Vaughn stood in the center of the crumbling hall, his pale fingers drumming against the pommel of his sword. Around him, 7 vampires waited in the shadows, former nobles, exiled warriors, merchants who'd traded their souls for power, all of them corrupted, all of them desperate to stay that way. "Tell me again about the child," Vaughn said softly. A thin vampire with nervous eyes stepped forward. "The worker district, a boy named Rowan. His mother's been asking healers strange questions, about blood fevers that come and go, about dreams of light, and about—" "Get to the point, Marcus." Marcus swallowed. "One of our turned humans tried to get close, just to observe. The moment he approached the house, he felt cleansed, like his enhancement was being burned away. He ran before it could take full effect." Vaughn's drumming stopped. "Cleansing blood? It has to be. Nothing else would—" "Impossible," a woman's voice cut through the darkness. Seraphine emerged from the shadows, her red dress dragging across the dusty floor. "That bloodline was eliminated. The king himself oversaw the purge 30 years ago. Perhaps he missed one, or perhaps someone hid one very, very well," Vaughn said, his lips curving into something too sharp to be a smile.
Seraphine moved closer, her eyes glinting. "If that child reaches maturity, if the blood fully awakens—" "Every corrupt vampire in the kingdom loses their power," Vaughn finished. "We revert, become weak, mortal eventually." He turned to face his followers. "Everything we've built, every enhancement we've given to our network, every advantage we've gained, gone, stripped away by one child's blood." Silence filled the barracks. "So we kill him," Marcus said. "Simple, final." "Not yet." Vaughn held up a hand. "Dead, the boy becomes a martyr, a mystery. Others will search for more cleansing blood, start asking dangerous questions." He paced, thinking. "But if he simply disappears, vanishes with his mother into the night, then it's just another tragedy in the lower districts, a sick child who didn't survive." "The mother won't let him go easily," Seraphine observed. "We saw her chase down one of our scouts with a shoe." Despite everything, several vampires smiled. "Then we take them both," Vaughn said. "Make it look like they fled from debt collectors, scatter their belongings, leave evidence of travel preparations." His eyes gleamed with cold calculation. "Once we have them, the boy dies cleanly. The mother can be persuaded to forget she ever had a son. Blood magic is useful that way." "When?" asked Marcus. 3 nights. We need to prepare carefully. The king's patrols have increased lately. He's been paranoid since the grain riots." Vaughn's expression darkened. "We can't risk drawing his attention." "About that," Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "There's a complication." Vaughn's patience was wearing thin. "Speak." "Last night, one of our turned thieves tried to rob someone in the Riverside Market. The target fought back, made a scene. The thief fled toward the worker district, and someone stopped him. Someone fast, someone powerful. The thief said he felt like he was standing before ancient death itself." The room went cold. "Description." Vaughn's voice was barely a whisper. "Tall, hooded. The thief couldn't see his face, but—" Marcus swallowed. "He was later seen outside the mother's house, watching." "The king!" Seraphine widened her eyes. "Don't be absurd," Vaughn snapped. "Aldrich hasn't left his citadel in years. He's become a hermit, a ghost who rules through proxies and fear." but doubt crept into his voice. Still, if someone is protecting the child, we need to know who. I can send scouts. No, Vaughn cut Marcus off. Scouts are how we got noticed in the first place. We go silent, dark. 3 nights we move as one force, fast and overwhelming. If there is a protector, we kill him first. He turned to address them all. Spread the word to our network. I want blood dealers pulled from the lower districts temporarily. No attention, no mistakes. And if it is the king? Seraphine asked quietly. Vaughn was silent for a long moment. Aldrich, the vampire king who'd ruled for 3 centuries, who'd crushed rebellions with casual brutality, who'd grown cold and distant after some ancient betrayal no one fully understood. Then we move faster, because if Aldrich remembers how to care about something again, if that child somehow broke through his ice, he met each of their eyes, then we're not just killing a boy, we're killing the king's last chance at redemption, and he'll burn the kingdom down to stop us. All the more reason, Seraphine said softly, to make sure we succeed. Vaughn nodded. 3 nights, no survivors, no witnesses. He turned toward the window where dawn was breaking over the kingdom. Somewhere in those distant streets, a sick child slept, unaware that 7 vampires had just signed his death warrant. And somewhere closer, perhaps on a rooftop, perhaps in an alley, an ancient king stood guard, remembering for the first time in 30 years what it meant to have something worth protecting. The pieces were moving, the game had begun, and neither side knew yet just how bloody it would become. The rogue scout died quietly. Aldrich lowered the body to the forest floor, watching as the corrupt blood evaporated into black mist. The vampire was young, recently turned, probably promised power and wealth by Vaughn's people. Instead, he got a quick death in the woods outside Mira's district. 3 scouts this week. They were circling closer, testing defenses, counting exits. Aldrich wiped his blade clean and headed toward the worker district. Morning sun filtered through the trees, but it didn't burn him. That was a myth. Old vampires like him had transcended such weaknesses centuries ago. He found Mira at the communal well, filling buckets while other women gossiped nearby. She looked worse than yesterday, more tired, more scared, pretending desperately to be normal. "You," she hissed when she saw him. "I thought you told me to leave. We need to talk. We really don't. Your house is being watched. I've killed 3 scouts in 4 days." The bucket slipped from her hands, splashing water everywhere. The other women turned to stare. Mira forced a smile, picked up the bucket, and grabbed Aldrich's arm with fingers like iron. "Walk, smile, act normal," she muttered once they were alone. They headed toward the edge of the district, Mira waving cheerfully to neighbors, while her grip threatened to cut off Aldrich's circulation. "You killed people?" she whispered once they were alone. "Vampires. They weren't people anymore. And that's supposed to make me feel better? You're—" She stopped walking, realization dawning. "You're a vampire too." It wasn't a question. Aldrich nodded slowly. "Perfect. Wonderful." Mira laughed, high and slightly hysterical. "My son is dying, vampires want him dead, and my only help is another vampire who kills people in the woods. This is fine. Everything is fine. I'm not like them. That's what they all say. I'm trying to protect you. Why?" Mira spun to face him, eyes blazing. "Why would you care? You don't know us. Rowan's just some sick kid from the slums. Why risk yourself?" "Because he made me laugh. Because you reminded me what courage looks like. Because your son carries a power that could save or destroy everything, and I haven't cared about anything in 30 years until now." "Because it's the right thing to do," Aldrich said instead. Mira studied him for a long moment. "You're a terrible liar." "I'm actually an excellent liar. I've had centuries of practice." "Centuries?" She pressed her hands to her face. "Of course you're ancient. Why wouldn't you be ancient?" A branch snapped behind them. Aldrich moved without thinking, pushing Mira behind him as a figure emerged from the trees. Another scout, this one faster, better trained, his eyes locked on Mira with predatory focus. The mother, the scout said, smiling. Vaughn wants you alive, but he didn't say undamaged. He lunged. Aldrich intercepted him mid-leap, and they crashed through the underbrush in a tangle of fangs and blades. The scout was strong, genuinely skilled, not just some desperate human given corrupt blood. You're protecting them. The scout's eyes widened in recognition. You're impossible. The king doesn't leave his... Aldrich snapped his neck before he could finish. Silence fell over the forest. Mira, said Aldrich carefully, not turning around. Are you hurt? No answer. He turned to find her backing away slowly, fear finally overwhelming her bravery. He called you king, she said. Her voice shook. Who are you? Someone trying to help.
Don't lie to me. The shout startled birds from nearby trees. I've had enough of lies and secrets and mysterious protectors. Who are you? Aldrich pulled back his hood. In full sunlight, his features were sharp and unnaturally perfect, the kind of face that belonged on ancient coins and forgotten statues, silver eyes that had watched kingdoms rise and fall, skin that hadn't aged in 300 years. My name is Aldrich, he said quietly, and yes, I'm the Vampire King. Mira's face went through several expressions: disbelief, terror, anger, and finally settling on exhausted frustration. The Vampire King, she repeated flatly. The actual, literal Vampire King has been lurking outside my house for a week? I prefer guarding. I prefer landlords who fix my roof, but we can't all get what we want. She sat down heavily on a fallen log. This is insane. You're insane. I'm insane for even listening to... She looked up sharply. Why? Why would a king care about us? Your son has cleansing blood, a power thought extinct. If it fully awakens, it could cure vampire corruption across the kingdom, restore balance, eliminate the worst of our kind. He paused. Or it could be weaponized, used to control us. Vaughn and his rogues want Rowan dead before anyone else discovers what he is. And what do you want? Aldrich met her eyes. To keep you both alive, nothing more. Nothing more, Mira echoed. The king wants nothing. Very believable. I don't expect you to trust me. Good, because I don't. But she stood, brushing dirt from her dress. However, I'm practical. You've killed people, vampires, trying to hurt my son. You haven't tried to take him, and right now, you're the only thing standing between Rowan and whatever's coming. She pointed at him. But I make the decisions about my son, not you. Clear? Despite everything, Aldrich felt that strange warmth again. Amusement. Respect. Crystal clear. Good. She started walking back toward the district. Now we need to get Rowan somewhere safe, somewhere your vampire friends can't find us. They're not my friends. I don't care if they're your knitting circle. Just get us somewhere safe. Aldrich watched her march ahead, fearless and terrified in equal measure. 30 years of numbness, of isolation, of ruling from behind walls, and this woman was ordering him around like an incompetent servant. He smiled, actually smiled, and followed her into the dangerous daylight. The hunter's cabin sat deep in the forest, surrounded by ancient wards that hummed with forgotten magic. Aldrich carried Rowan through the doorway while Mira followed, clutching a bag of their hastily gathered belongings. They'd left her house in the middle of the night, slipping through back alleys while Aldrich's few remaining loyal guards created diversions across the district. This place is protected. Old magic, older than me even. Nothing corrupted can cross the threshold. Mira immediately set to work, checking Rowan's fever, adjusting blankets, murmuring soft reassurances. The boy hadn't woken during the journey. His breathing was shallow, his skin too pale. He's getting worse, she said quietly. The stress of moving didn't help. Aldrich examined the boy from a distance, sensing the way his cleansing blood pulsed erratically. His power is fighting the fever. That's why normal medicine isn't working. His body doesn't know whether to purify or heal. Can you help him? I don't know.
Mira's shoulders sagged. For the first time since he'd met her, she looked truly defeated. What kind of king doesn't know? The kind who's been hiding from his responsibilities for 30 years. The admission came easier than expected. I'm sorry, I should have better answers. She was quiet for a moment, stroking Rowan's hair. Why did you hide? I mean, Aldrich moved to the window, staring out at the dark forest. Betrayal. My family, my human family before I was turned, they sold me to a vampire lord for gold and land. I was 17 and the old wound ached like a fresh cut. After I became king, I thought I could trust my advisors, build something better. Instead, they conspired against me, tried to overthrow me for a more manageable ruler. What happened to them? I won. His voice was hollow. Then I stopped trusting anyone, stopped feeling anything. It was easier that way. Easier, Mira repeated. Not better. No, not better. Rowan stirred, mumbling in his sleep. Mira adjusted Rowan's blankets again, her movements gentle despite her exhaustion. You should rest, Aldrich said. I'll keep watch. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see them coming for him. She looked at Aldrich, her eyes red-rimmed. How do you do it? Live for centuries watching people suffer. You stop looking, stop caring, build walls until nothing can touch you. Sounds lonely. It was, Aldrich surprised himself with the honesty. It is. Mira stood, moved to the small cabinet in the corner, and found tea leaves and a dented kettle. She set water to boil over the cabin's fireplace, her movements automatic, practiced. My husband died 3 years ago, she said softly. Rowan was just a baby. Everyone told me to remarry, said I couldn't raise a child alone. I laughed bitterly. They were probably right. I work 3 jobs and we're still starving. But he's mine. I chose to keep fighting for him. You're lucky. He's dying, her voice cracked. And I can't fix it. Can't even afford proper medicine without chasing thieves through fish markets. The kettle whistled. She poured 2 cups of tea with shaking hands. Here, she thrust one at Aldrich. You look exhausted. He stared at the cup. I don't need... Just take it, please. Something in her voice made him accept. The tea was bitter, probably cheap, older than Rowan, but it was warm, and it was offered without fear, without calculation, just kindness. Thank you, Aldrich said quietly. They sat in silence, drinking terrible tea while Rowan slept and the forest whispered outside. The stars, Rowan murmured suddenly, his eyes fluttering open. He looked directly at Aldrich. You still smell like stars. Mira rushed to his side. Baby, you're awake. How do you feel? Tired, but safer. The Starman keeps the shadows away. That's one way to describe me, Aldrich said, something warm and unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Are you going to protect us? Rowan asked with the blunt honesty of children. Yes. Promise? Aldrich met the boy's eyes, so innocent, so trusting despite everything. I promise. Okay, Rowan smiled slightly. Mama says promises are important. You can't break them. I won't. Satisfied, Rowan closed his eyes again, drifting back to sleep. Mira watched Aldrich carefully. He's never wrong about people, says he can feel their colors, their intentions. She touched Rowan's forehead. He said you're silver and blue, sad colors, but safe ones. I don't feel particularly safe. Neither do I, she met his gaze, but we're both here anyway, fighting for something, for someone.
For him. Mira looked at her sleeping son. Whatever happens, if they come, if we have to run again, thank you. For trying, for caring when you didn't have to. Aldrich wanted to say something meaningful, something that captured the strange tightness in his chest, the way this broken little family had somehow cracked through 30 years of ice. Instead, he said, "Get some rest. Dawn is still hours away." Mira nodded, curling up beside Rowan on the narrow bed. Aldrich took his position by the window, teacup still warm in his hands, and watched the forest for shadows. For the first time in decades, he wasn't alone in his vigil, and for the first time in decades, the silence didn't feel quite so heavy. Outside, the wind shifted. Something was coming. They came with the first light.
Aldrich sensed them before he saw them, 7 distinct presences moving through the forest like wolves closing on wounded prey. He'd been expecting an attack, but not this soon, not this organized. "Mira," his voice was urgent but quiet. "Wake up, now." She was alert instantly, mother's instinct overriding exhaustion. "What?" "They're here. 7, maybe more. We need to move." "But Rowan can't. He's too weak, too—" "Then I'll carry him." Aldrich was already at the bed, gathering the boy into his arms. Rowan stirred but didn't wake. "There's a path behind the cabin. Follow it north until you reach the cliffs. There's a village." "I'm not leaving you to fight alone." "Mira, this isn't—" "Not leaving." She grabbed a heavy iron poker from the fireplace. "Now, where are they?" Aldrich wanted to argue, wanted to order her to run, to hide, to do anything except stand beside him with nothing but a poker and stubborn courage. But the wards were already breaking. The cabin door exploded inward. Vaughn entered first, flanked by Seraphine and Marcus. 4 others spread out behind them, cutting off escape routes. They moved with predatory grace, their corrupted blood making them faster, stronger than they had any right to be. "Well," Vaughn said, his eyes settling on Aldrich. The rumors were true. The king himself playing protector. His gaze shifted to Rowan. "Hand over the child, Aldrich. This doesn't concern you." "Everything in my kingdom concerns me." "Your kingdom?" Vaughn laughed. "You abandoned it 30 years ago. You hide in your citadel while we do the actual work of ruling, managing trade, controlling crime, keeping order." "You mean spreading corruption, building power." "Same thing." Vaughn's smile was cold. "The boy dies today. You can't stop all of us." Aldrich set Rowan down carefully behind him. "Watch me." He moved. 300 years of speed, power, and barely restrained violence erupted in the small cabin. Aldrich caught Marcus by the throat, hurled him through the wall, ducked under Seraphine's blade, snapped her wrist with casual brutality. But there were too many. A rogue grabbed Mira from behind. She twisted, swung the poker with everything she had. It connected with his skull with a satisfying crack. He stumbled back, shocked. "I said we fight together," she shouted at Aldrich. Despite the chaos, despite the danger, Aldrich felt that impossible warmth again. Pride, respect. This woman was facing down vampires with a fireplace poker and winning. "Behind you!" she screamed. Aldrich spun, caught a blade meant for his spine, twisted it from the attacker's hands and drove it through his chest. Black blood sprayed across ancient wood. Vaughn watched from the doorway, calculating. Seraphine, the boy, now. She lunged for Rowan. Mira threw herself between them, poker raised. "Over my dead body." "That can be arranged," Seraphine hissed. But before she could strike, Rowan's eyes snapped open. Light exploded from the small body of Rowan, pure, silver, blinding light that filled the cabin like dawn breaking inside a sealed room. Every corrupted vampire screamed, clutching at their chests as the cleansing blood activated. Not fully, not permanently, but enough. Their enhancements flickered, failed. For just a moment they were weak. Aldrich didn't waste it. He moved through them like death itself, precise, brutal, efficient. 2 rogues fell before they could recover. Marcus fled through the broken wall. Seraphine stumbled back, her corruption fighting against the cleansing wave. But Aldrich felt it too. The purifying light touched his own ancient blood, and for a heartbeat he felt mortal, vulnerable. The weight of 300 years pressed down on him like a physical thing. Then Rowan collapsed, and the light died. Vaughn stood at the doorway, face twisted with rage and something like fear. "This changes nothing. We'll come again and again until—" "No." Aldrich's voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. "You'll run now, and you'll tell every rogue, every corrupt vampire in my kingdom that the king has remembered who he is." His eyes blazed silver. "And I'm done hiding." For a moment, Vaughn looked ready to fight. Then he saw Aldrich's expression, saw 3 centuries of suppressed rage finally given focus, and ran. Seraphine and the remaining rogues fled after him, disappearing into the forest like shadows before flame. Silence fell. Aldrich stood in the ruins of the cabin, breathing hard. The brief mortality Rowan's power had triggered was fading, his full strength returning, but the memory of vulnerability remained. Mira was already at Rowan's side, checking his pulse. He's breathing, unconscious but breathing. His power activated, saved us. He moved to examine the boy, but it took everything he had. He'll survive, but we can't stay here. Aldrich looked at the broken door, at the forest beyond. They'll regroup, bring more. We need to reach the mountain pass before what? Mira demanded. Before they kill us? Before my son tears himself apart trying to protect us? Her voice broke. How much more can he take? I don't know, Aldrich admitted, but staying here means certain death. Moving gives us a chance. Mira looked at her unconscious son, at the vampire king standing in the ruins, at the impossible situation they'd been thrown into. Then we move, she said quietly. But after this, after we're safe, you're going to tell me everything. No more secrets, no more half-truths. Agreed. She picked up her fallen poker, gripping it like a lifeline. And I'm keeping this. It's been more useful than I expected. Despite everything, the attack, the danger, the uncertainty, Aldrich smiled. I wouldn't have it any other way. They gathered what they could carry and headed into the dangerous dawn, a broken family and a king remembering what it meant to fight for something beyond himself. Behind them, the forest burned with the lingering traces of Rowan's light. Ahead, the mountain pass waited, and somewhere in between, Vaughn was planning his next move. The game had changed, and Aldrich was done playing from the shadows. The ruins of the old temple rose from the mountainside like broken teeth. Aldrich led them through crumbling archways as the sun climbed higher, burning away the morning mist. Rowan remained unconscious in his arms, wrapped in Mira's shawl. She walked beside them, exhausted but vigilant, still clutching that ridiculous poker. Why here? She asked, eyeing the ancient stones wearily. It's a place of truth, Aldrich said, built by the first vampires and humans who tried to coexist. No lies can survive within its walls. Old magic ensures it. He paused at the entrance. I thought you deserved honesty. I deserved honesty a week ago. You're not wrong.
They entered the temple's central chamber. Fragments of stained glass caught the sunlight, scattering colors across worn stone. In the center stood an altar carved with symbols, neither human nor vampire. Something older, from the time before the division. Aldrich set Rowan down gently on a stone bench, then turned to face Mira. Ask, he said simply. Anything. The temple won't let me lie. Mira studied him for a long moment. Then, are you going to take my son from me? No. The word rang through the chamber with the clarity of absolute truth. Will you use him? His power? Not without your permission, and his when he's old enough to give it. Aldrich's jaw tightened. I've seen what happens when power is stolen from the unwilling. I won't repeat those mistakes. Why do you really care about us? Her voice softened. A king could have dozens of guards protecting Rowan. You didn't need to risk yourself. Aldrich was quiet. The temple's magic pressed against him, demanding truth. Because I was dead inside for 30 years. I ruled. I survived. But I didn't live. Then I saw a woman chase a thief with a shoe and scream threats that would make soldiers blush. He met her eyes. You made me laugh, made me feel something. Your son carries a power that could save the kingdom, but you reminded me why kingdoms are worth saving. Mira's breath caught. You can't just... I know what I am, Aldrich said quickly. What I've done. The blood on my hands could fill oceans. His voice dropped. But standing beside you, protecting your son, it's the first time in decades I've felt like something more than a monster wearing a crown. The temple's light seemed to brighten, confirming every word. You're an idiot, Mira said finally. Probably.
A centuries-old vampire king who apparently has the emotional intelligence of a brick? I've been told. And you think fighting beside me for a few days means you've suddenly found redemption or purpose or whatever this is? She stepped closer, and Aldrich realized she was furious. You don't get to put that weight on us, on me. We're not your salvation project. The words hit harder than any blade. You're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. I'm not finished. Her eyes blazed. You want honesty? Fine. You terrify me. Not because you're a vampire, but because when you look at Rowan, I see someone who'd burn the world down to keep him safe. She jabbed a finger at his chest. That's my job. Mine, not yours. I know. Do you? Because right now you're talking like we're yours to protect, like you've claimed us. We're not yours, Aldrich. We're our own people making our own choices. The temple's silence was deafening. Then Rowan stirred. Mama? His voice was weak but clear. Why are you yelling at the Starman? Mira's anger crumbled into relief. She rushed to his side, checking his fever, his color. How do you feel, baby? Tired, but lighter. Rowan's gaze was steady. The bad vampires tried to hurt you, so I made it go away. You saved us, Aldrich said gently. I know. I could feel what you were feeling. Rowan's gaze was steady. You were scared, not of the bad vampires, of losing us. Mira froze. I'm not good at this, Aldrich admitted, the temple forcing raw honesty from him. At caring, at letting people close. I'd forgotten how, or maybe I never knew. He looked at them both, this fierce mother and their extraordinary child. But I meant what I said, every word. You're not my salvation. You're just the first people in 30 years I've wanted to know, to protect, not because I have to, but because I choose to. Rowan smiled slightly. Mama says choices matter most. They do, Mira said quietly. She studied Aldrich's face, and something in her expression shifted. Not trust, not yet, but understanding. What happens now? Vaughn won't stop. More will come. Then we go where they can't follow. The Royal Citadel, under my direct protection. Publicly announced, no rogue would dare attack there. You'd reveal us, make Rowan a target. He's already a target, but in the Citadel he'd be a target with walls, guards, and a king's oath standing between him and danger. He paused. It's not perfect, but it's the best chance. And after, when he's older, when this power fully awakens, that's his choice, and yours. He met her eyes. I'm offering protection, a place to heal, to grow strong, to make your own decisions. Nothing more. Nothing more, Mira repeated. She looked at Rowan, then back at Aldrich. I want a say in every decision that affects my son, not as a subject, but as a partner in this insanity. Done. And if I don't like how things are run in your citadel, I'm going to tell you. I'd expect nothing less. She held out her hand. Then we have a deal, Your Majesty. Aldrich took her hand. Her grip was firm, calloused, real. Call me Aldrich, please. For the first time, Mira smiled at Aldrich, a real smile, not born of anger or fear, but something warmer. Okay, Aldrich, let's go save my son. The royal citadel rose against the evening sky like a crown of silver and stone. Aldrich led them through the main gates as shocked guards stumbled to attention. Whispers erupted as courtiers glimpsed their reclusive king walking openly through the halls. And not alone. A common woman and a child flanked him, the woman still clutching a fireplace poker like a royal scepter. This is insane, Mira muttered, staring at the vaulted ceilings and elaborate tapestries. Your home looks like a museum. It feels like a tomb, Aldrich said quietly. He brought them to the east wing, rooms that hadn't been used in decades, now hastily prepared by bewildered servants. A proper bed for Rowan, soft carpets, windows that overlooked gardens instead of muddy alleys. Rowan's eyes went wide. Is this ours? For as long as you need it, Aldrich said. A healer arrived, an ancient vampire woman named Celeste, who'd served the crown for 2 centuries. She examined Rowan with gentle efficiency, while Mira hovered protectively. The cleansing blood is stabilizing. Now that he's away from immediate danger, his body can focus on healing rather than defending. She looked at Aldrich meaningfully. He'll need rest, peace, time. He'll have it. After Celeste left, Aldrich found Mira standing at the window watching the sunset paint the kingdom in gold and crimson. I need to make an announcement. Declare you both under royal protection. It has to be public, formal, so Vaughn and his rogues understand the consequences of attacking you. Will it work? It will make them think twice, maybe 3 times. He moved to stand beside her. But there's something you should know. Once I do this, you'll be visible, known, connected to the crown. Your old life was barely a life, Mira finished. 3 jobs, constant fear, watching my son suffer. She turned to face him. I'm not naive. I know this comes with its own dangers, but at least here Rowan has a chance. And you? What do you want? The question seemed to surprise her. No one's asked me that in years. I'm asking now.
Mira was quiet for a moment, considering. I want Rowan to grow up safe, to choose his own path, not have it forced on him by prophecy or blood or politics. She met Aldrich's gaze. And I want to stop being so tired, to sleep without wondering if someone's coming through the door, to just breathe. Then breathe, Aldrich said softly. You're safe here. Are you? The question hung between them. Safe, I mean? You've been hiding from the world for 30 years. Now you're about to announce you care about something again? That makes you vulnerable. I know. And you're doing it anyway. Yes, Aldrich smiled slightly. Turns out vulnerability isn't as terrifying as I remembered, especially when the alternative is going back to being numb. Behind them, Rowan called out, Mama, there's a bath with hot water. Mira laughed, actually laughed, the sound bright and genuine. He's going to flood the entire room if I don't supervise. Go. I'll handle the announcement. She paused at the doorway. Aldrich, thank you for everything. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. You could have ignored us, stayed in your comfortable isolation. Her expression softened. But you didn't. You chose to care. That matters. After she left, Aldrich stood alone in the fading light, her words echoing in the empty chamber. He chose to care. Such simple words, such impossible weight. An hour later, Aldrich stood on the grand balcony overlooking the citadel's main courtyard. Every noble, every guard, every servant who could be gathered stood below. News had spread quickly. The king was making his first public appearance in 5 years. I have been absent, his voice carried across the silent crowd. In not body, but in spirit. I ruled from shadows, from distance, believing isolation made me strong. He paused. I was wrong. Gasps rippled through the assembly. Tonight I declare 2 citizens under my direct protection, Mira of the Worker District and her son, Rowan. Any who threaten them threaten the crown itself. Any who harm them will face me personally. His eyes blazed silver. This is not a request. This is law. The courtyard erupted in whispers. Aldrich let them talk. Let the news spread. Somewhere in the kingdom Vaughn would hear, would understand, would think very carefully about his next move. As Aldrich turned to leave, he found Mira standing in the balcony doorway, Rowan beside her. The boy looked healthier already, color in his cheeks, brightness in his eyes. That was dramatic, Mira said. I'm a king. Drama is expected. You know half your court thinks you've lost your mind. Only half? I must be slipping. Rowan tugged at Aldrich's sleeve. Are we really safe now? Aldrich knelt to the boy's level. Safer. There's still danger. There always will be. But you have me, your mother, and an entire citadel between you and harm. And you'll stay? Not disappear like before? The question hit deeper than Rowan probably intended. Aldrich glanced at Mira, who watched him with careful eyes. I'll stay, he promised. No more hiding.
Rowan hugged him suddenly, small arms wrapping around Aldrich's neck with complete trust. The vampire king who'd killed thousands, ruled for centuries, forgotten how to feel, froze. Then slowly he hugged back. When Rowan pulled away, he was grinning. "You should smile more. You look less scary." "Rowan," Mira scolded, but she was fighting her own smile. "He's right," Aldrich said. And then he did, genuinely smile, the expression feeling strange and wonderful on his face. The first real smile in 30 years. Mira's breath caught. There it is. What? Whatever you were before the walls went up. She reached out, hesitated, then touched his arm briefly. "Thank you for letting us see it." They stood together on the balcony as night fell over the kingdom, a broken king, a fierce mother, and a boy whose blood might change everything. Their future wasn't written yet. Romance, if it came, would be slow, earned, built on choices made freely rather than prophecy or fate. But the foundation was there: courage, trust, connection. And for the first time in 30 years, Aldrich looked toward tomorrow, not with dread or numbness, but with something dangerously close to hope. In the courtyard below, guards took their posts, the citadel's wards hummed with renewed strength, and somewhere in the darkness beyond the walls, rogues reconsidered their plans against a king who'd finally remembered why kingdoms were worth defending. The game had changed, and Aldrich was done playing from the shadows. Would you stand beside them in this fight? Comment what you'd do in their place.